Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today, and I think I finally figured it out. All right, I mentioned how I was Walmart Hayden Christensen, but today, as I learned that my hair is really figuring itself out, I found out who I truly am. I looked in the mirror and thought, that's right. You're that discount Levi Ackerman. I think it works. All right, so hey, let's rock with it. Anyway, welcome one, welcome all to a Cyberpunk 2077 news update. I'm gonna be honest, I pulled out a news game for a little bit with Cyberpunk because it got a little bit toxic. Anytime I just delivered the news, it was overly negative, and understandably so. A lot of people were very much upset with the product, but it at times would come my way, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go report on other games and let everyone cool off for a little bit. Now we're back because there's been a massive leak that details the future of expansions and DLC for Cyberpunk 2077. And if you don't recall, back in April, we had a little bit more of that. This adds context to those leaks and gives us more to talk about on wherever this game is. Because to me, one of the biggest surprises for E3, and I think it was a pleasant surprise because it shows that they're not rushing it like it seems they already did, is that Cyberpunk 2077 was absent. I thought there would be a re-reveal, an announcement of DLC, but CD Projekt Red, outside of some of the issues with hacks, has gone completely silent, and I think that's a smart thing to do. So when they come back, hopefully they can please fans. Of course, that damage cannot be undone, and as someone who even liked the game, I understand that, but we'll see where it all ends up. So let's get into the latest leak for Cyberpunk 2077. And if you're new here and you're interested in more Cyberpunk coverage or more so general RPGs, you're in the right spot. Be sure to join up. Consider hitting the notification bell so you don't miss any uploads. I know it's been a slow month, but I appreciate those of you who stuck with me. And let's dive into it. So this information, of course, comes from Reddit. Surprise, surprise, Reddit, the place where rumors are born. And it comes from user Saint Pirate. The title of the post is Cyberpunk free DLC and expansion names leak. In April, in the search of cut content, I went into the text files of the game and found references to EP1 with new quests from Mr. Hands, who is the fixer from Pacifica. Forgetting about it for a long time, and after digging into leaked source code, I found a list of DLC and 2 expansions with the name EP1 and EP2. A day later, I remembered my April find and realized that EP1 is most likely going to be an expansion. EP1 expands Pacifica and adds a combat zone with new quests and locations, as well as new long history. About EP2, I don't know. I can say that KAB01, ARR06, ARR12, JPN09 are new gigs. EP1 and EP2 are going to be long paid expansions. Another DLC is going to be free. When it comes to Pacifica, this was one of the more underwhelming parts of the map, and overall the story, I felt. While I enjoyed Cyberpunk 2077's story, I thought Pacifica and the Voodoo Boys and all the factions and potential there was really lost upon CD Projekt Red. So to know that the first expansion will be targeting what I thought was one of the weakest parts of the game, bugs and glitches aside, I think this is good news for the game. It's quite honestly something I wish a lot of games that didn't have their potential realized in the base game would go back and do. Oftentimes we see companies think beyond new areas, new zones, and I do think that's exciting. But I do look at Bethesda with Fallout 76, for example, where, of course, 76's launch content was very underwhelming, but now that's a very content-rich game. I do wish, speaking of Fallout, maybe Bethesda did something like this for Fallout 4. I mean, the Commonwealth was pumped full of Radiant quest lines, and so certain parts of the Commonwealth, in turn, felt dead. And I wish that they would have done something like this. So I know it's hard to get excited. I totally understand and respect that. I'm just saying I think this is a good sign of things to come when it comes to where they are targeting it. Of course, their execution is a whole other discussion. The list of the names of free DLC are the following. DLC 1 is SWP. DLC 2 is J Poses. DLC 3 is KAB01. DLC 4 is Quartz. DLC 5, pretty self-explanatory, Jackets. DLC 6, Apart. DLC 7, PWP. DLC 8 is Mirror. DLC 9, ARR06. DLC 10, seems like a self-explanatory one as well, Monster. DLC 11 is JLook. Then we have DLC 12 with M-Finish. DLC 13 is TWP. DLC 14, ARR12. DLC 15, I'm going to go with New Game Plus. DLC 16, JPN06, and DLC 17 finally is BWP. So we do know some of these are gigs. I just mentioned one clearly looks to be New Game Plus. And then I think with all the WPs, these are likely weapon packs. And I saw speculation amongst the fandom saying like tech weapon pack, smart weapon pack for the TWP, the SWP, power weapon pack, PWP. I think this would make a lot of sense, especially when you look at some of the cut content for Cyberpunk 2077. Someone had actually discovered a Arasaka sniper rifle that accidentally dropped for them in combat, but it was a glitch. They should never have received that item. So I think it's very well possible we're going to get into weapon packs with this game, and we do have an idea of some of the general expansions and DLCs by name thanks to a previous leak that we're going to dive into, but there's still more information, of course, when it comes to what Reddit has to offer. So they write up, also, text about new quest from Mr. Hands gets added after patch 1.2. He was not in the game. That means one thing. They are working on expansion 1 right now, and we can probably get it in early 2022. That's because someone on part of the team has already started development of this expansion. He does leave a post detailing how exactly he found this information, if anyone wants to go ahead and check that out and verify it. But what I think was most important for folks like myself is that he posted his proof here, where you can see the actual text files and source codes that he data mined with the write-ups that we're talking about, where you can see some of the objectives and quests you'll be completing in Objective 1, like getting inside a pool complex or doing a gig called Court Martial for Wagner. There's plenty of stuff there, and there's even a separate source code analysis page which showcases all of the DLC names within Cyberpunk's source code. So this is indeed legitimate, which means that we can discuss it a little bit further. That brings us back to the leak that happened on the Epic Games Store in April, where we got some DLC and expansion names. So some of those were Ripper Docks expansion, Body Shops expansion, Fashion Forward expansion, Gangs of Night City, Body of Chrome, Rides of the Dark Future, Relic, Neck Deep, and then Night City expansion, plus 3 different blanked out areas, which seemed to be what we thought were paid for expansions. Now, what's interesting is that we saw $0 and 0 cents next to all of the DLC listed on the Epic Games Store. I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but if CD Projekt Red is going to stick to their prior commitment, which we can't really trust them to do so quite yet, thanks to what happened with Cyberpunk 2077, you look at what they did with The Witcher 3, though, and I think it's safe to expect some of this DLC should be free, like the weapon packs, the gigs. I imagine those will be free, and you can start to connect the dots and fill in the blanks where we already know, thanks to data mining, some of these are gigs. We can assume one of them is New Game Plus. Now we look at this other leak and we can see something that have to do with vehicles, Body of Chrome, something to do with your character, Fashion Forward, something to do with clothes, the Ripper Dock expansion, so new perks and upgrades for your character's body, Night City expansion, perhaps that ties into what the Pacifica one would be, given the fact that that would expand the base city. We also do know, in fairness, and when you start to go beyond the limits of Night City, they tell you they haven't expanded it yet. So there is also that possibility, but I think that'll be a deeper expansion when they go beyond Night City and all that has to offer. But it's interesting to see how they're building it up, and it looks like they're filling things out. I think the most important thing, of course, is when the next-gen update finally drops for this game, which is looking more and more likely to be a 2022 game, which is once again totally fine. I think people are just willing to wait at this point. We've waited long enough, but the game has found its way onto the PlayStation Store. It managed to surge to the top of the PlayStation Store. So there is, believe it or not, I know a lot of my audience has either played it and left it, or tried it out and left it, or just has watched the fire from afar, but there is an interest still in Cyberpunk 2077, and people do want to get their hands on it. And the real question, I think, is how long is too long? 2022 starts off really strong with 2, I would say, heavy hitters, unless they get delayed, which are Elden Ring, and I know this may sound off topic, but Pokemon Legends of Arceus. And I look at both those games and go, these are going to demand people's attention. Like, finally, the open world Pokemon game we wanted. Elden Ring, the hype for Elden Ring is insane. And that's in just the first month. 2022 is going to be where the shackles come off, man. It's going to finally be next-gen gaming season. We're going to start to get more consistent new releases, where Cyberpunk just may end up being another game on the shelf. Right now, I think is a more, I don't want to say exciting, because we've already had the game, but I would go with intriguing time for Cyberpunk. People got time for Cyberpunk right now, if anything. I don't think they will next year. So you don't want to rush them, but they also need to strike at the right moment. And I mean, this is what happens when you when you rushed your game out. So they've put themselves in this pickle, so we'll see how they operate, and if they fail again, who cares? But hey, I just want to go ahead and report on this because at the end of the day, I find this game to be enjoyable, and I thought now's a good time to dip the toes back in as things start to warm up a little bit and let you all know what's happening with Cyberpunk 2077. So let me know what you're thinking in the comments down below. I'm certainly anticipating the thoughts and feedback down below. Other than that, be sure to follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below as well, along with the Patreon. Big thank you to everyone who's been joining up, really supporting the content we're creating here. Appreciate each and every single one of you, and we'll talk soon. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.